Hey, everybody, welcome to True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. I'm Kristi Brower, here with my sister, co host, and partner in crime, Katie Weaver. Hey, Katie.
Hello, how's it going?
Oh, good. Gosh, we have a big case, don't we, today?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, we have
we're
been
going to jump
firmly
right
down the
in.
rabbit hole.
Yeah, we have been firmly down the rabbit hole, and we don't even have time for any chit chat because we want to jump right in to
Yep,
this.
yep, we got a lot to
Y'all are
say.
familiar with this name, but you've never heard us talk about him. So,
Yeah,
today's episode is Israel Keys.
yeah,
Probably know who he is, but we're gonna go deep on him. Let's just say we're going deep on him today. We're
mm-hmm.
gonna talk a lot about him and the things that he's done and some weird similarities he has to Ted Bundy and also to us.
Yeah,
Creepy. So let's get right with it. Israel
yeah,
Keys was born on January 7th, 1978. He was born in Cove, Utah, to a large Mormon family.
yep.
WTF, my friends? Is this weird or what? I mean, how
What is
often do
happening?
we unintentionally end up talking about Mormons on this show all the time? I mean,
We
sometimes it's
promise we're
intentional.
not really doing it on purpose. It just,
I
they come to us.
I didn't even actually realize this until I started doing a deeper dive on Keys, and I was like, wait a minute.
I didn't either. So he was the oldest of 10, correct?
Yeah, he was, and his family. Oh, he was the second of 10. Well, that's
Oh,
right. So they didn't stay Mormons very long. From somewhere
yeah.
between the ages of 3 and 5, they deconverted, left the Mormon church, and joined a radical form of fundamental Christianity. And they moved to Colville, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Now, remember, there are 10 children in this family. They lived in a one-room cabin with no electricity or running water. And this was
Yeah.
in like the early 80s. Like, what the
Yeah.
hell, right?
Can you fathom that? Yeah.
No, I cannot. And so
I mean,
then,
Keys is our age.
yeah, Keys
He's
is
one
our age.
younger than me.
Yeah, exactly. So we grew up in similar areas. We aren't that
Mhm.
far from Colville, Washington.
Yeah.
This was definitely an intentional choice on his parents' parts.
Oh, yeah.
So they joined a Christian church, or a couple of them, that were super white supremacist,
Mm-hmm.
which I have to say, sadly, is not that unusual in this area.
Yeah.
The craziest part about it is that they were neighbors and friends with Chevy Kehoe. Do you remember who Chevy Kehoe was?
Mm-mm.
Is? I don't know. Is he dead? Convicted white supremacist murderer.
Oh,
He's serving 3 consecutive life sentences for kidnapping, torture, and murder of William Muller and his family.
good Lord.
Yeah, and they were neighbors and friends.
Yeah.
Like, clearly, whatever they were doing was breeding serial killers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, Keyes decided to become a Satanist when he was in high school and
Yeah.
renounced Christianity.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. The whole Satanist thing, not really a thing. It's
Yeah.
really kids who want to shock their fundamentalist families say stuff like that.
Yeah.
We always grew up around kids that decided to become Satanists
Yeah.
because they were, pissed off at their Mormon parents. We
Right.
heard
That
stuff
was
like,
just swinging to the other side of the pendulum to, yeah.
right. Yeah.
Even
So,
when we
but
had our store, we'd have teenagers come in and be like,
yeah,
yeah, I'm a Satanist. And we'd be like, really?
what does
That's
that mean?
interesting. So what do you believe then? What does that mean? They had no idea.
Mm-mm.
None at
They
all.
didn't freaking know. They did not
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But he was kind of trying to get away from his parents' fundamentalist roots. But, I got to say that he got raised with some really hateful rhetoric
Oh, yeah.
that I feel like mixed in with his personality disorder and mental health issues
Mm-hmm.
really kind of colored his view of human life,
Yeah.
dare we say. So he
I think
went
that's
in.
true.
Oh, say what?
I said, I think that's true, without a
Yeah.
doubt.
Just looking at it, I think, this kind of did, because he didn't have much, he really didn't care about human life as
No.
most, psychopaths don't. But it
Yeah.
does kind of make you wonder, where did that come from?
Mhm.
Now, Keyes started getting in trouble when he was about 10. Now, have we heard this before? He started breaking
Right?
into people's houses and stealing stuff. Sound
Yep.
familiar?
Yep.
We've heard this from a bunch of other serial
How many
killers we've talked about.
times? Yeah.
He also was lighting fires.
Yes, and torturing animals.
Yeah. Yep. He's got the triad there.
Yep.
Also, likely got the symptoms of sexual abuse,
Mhm.
especially the fire lighting. So we don't know a ton about that time in his life,
No,
other than his behavior was definitely pointing to problems.
definitely. Yeah.
So he did take a shot at being in the military.
Mhm.
He went into the military in 1998. So he was
Mhm.
in military from 98 to 2001. He only stayed for 3 years. But you know what was interesting? He told, when he was admitting to some of his crimes, he kind of mentioned that he didn't start killing until after he left the military.
Uh-huh.
I kind of feel like he knew he'd get caught when he was still in the military.
Yeah.
But he did serve at Fort Lewis and Fort Hood, and then he was in Egypt for a short time.
Mhm.
Makes me wonder if there are any unsolved murders in Egypt that they might want to, take a look at.
Right. No kidding.
Yeah. He did
Yeah.
have a real drinking problem and had a drinking. He started drinking when he was around 10. Again, like how many serial killers we should compare? They all
Mhm.
started all this stuff at about 10.
Mhm. I know, it's pretty wild. Well, and in
Yeah.
fact, the only trouble he ever got in the military was a DUI.
Right. Right. He was really kind of a model soldier.
Mhm.
So, people thought at the time.
Well, and was well liked.
Yeah, well liked. People didn't really expect this of him.
Yeah.
Didn't really see anything coming while he was in the military.
Mhm.
So he got out of the military, and he says he didn't start killing till after he left the military. But there is a murder in 1996 that a lot of people do attribute to him, a young girl,
Right.
that maybe he did it. We don't know. We'll probably never know, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So after the military, he moved to Alaska and okay, not before that, he was in Washington. He did get married and he had a daughter.
Mhm.
And then he left that woman
Well, and
because,
quickly on that,
Mhm.
they were living on the Maka Indian reservation,
Yes, that's what I was trying to remember the name of it and couldn't remember. Yeah, they were living on that Indian reservation.
which I find fascinating considering his white supremacist roots. And
Yes.
he did really disavow his family's beliefs, it seems, and there's
Hmm.
really no pattern of, like, racism in his killing
No, it's
at
totally
all.
random.
However, I can't find any proof that his daughter, and the mother of the daughter are actually Native American. Uh,
Right.
in fact, it actually looks like they're not, which
Yeah.
is also it's all interesting, but it's interesting to me that he lived for quite a while on a res.
Yeah, he did. Very strange.
Mhm.
Again, maybe we ought to be looking at some cases there.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Oh,
so then
king of
he,
MMIW, probably.
yeah,
Yeah.
no kidding. So then he meets a woman online in Anchorage and he takes his daughter to Anchorage and moves in with this girlfriend.
Mhm.
And he starts his own construction business in Alaska. And this is in 2007. So he works as a handyman and a contractor and a construction worker, which becomes very handy for him because he can just be, on a job whenever he's
Mhm.
out to kill someone.
Right.
So, one of the weird things that Keyes did is he buried these, what he called kill caches,
Mhm.
all over the US.
Yep.
and he kept track of where they were. So they looked like this. If you're watching the video, they are a Home Depot orange bucket.
Oh, yeah, 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah, 5-gallon bucket. And in the bucket is like a broken down gun and a silencer and a bunch of ammunition, basically whatever he would need to kill someone.
Mm-hmm.
So he says that he buried these all over the US so that whenever he decided he was ready to kill somebody, he would just travel to one of the areas where he buried one, dig it up,
Yeah.
go use it, put it back. I don't know for sure.
This is
And
so bizarre to me for so
yeah.
many reasons. Oh, Drano. He put Drano in
Oh,
every
yeah.
one in case he
Drano.
needed Drano to dispose of a body.
Right.
These guns and the silencers and the ammo and the equipment, that is extremely expensive.
Yes.
And we don't know how many of these kits he assembled and buried throughout the US. So that's one
Yeah.
part of this that boggles my mind. The other
Mhm.
part of it is, can you imagine digging one of these up?
No.
You know, that one slays me. You know, that the fact that it's possible that, for time immemorial, occasionally one of these is going to surface in some
Yeah.
kind of excavation.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll make it to the right authorities so that, so that we know that we get to hear about these coming to the surface. Hell, it could be in, 200 years. We don't know when these will be
Right.
found or
We
if they'll be
don't.
found or if there's more out there than what he actually dug up and
Right.
used. We
He
don't know.
implied that there were, but what
Mhm.
we know of him is that he is a liar
Right.
and,
Right.
um never tired of screwing with the police and screwing with the FBI. And so what is the truth of his history? We don't really know.
Yeah.
But the FBI has said, like if you find one of these, if you find a buried 5-gallon bucket full of ammunition and a gun, try not to touch it very much and call the police
It looks
because they
kinda like a
are,
kill kit. Yeah.
yeah, then, they are still trying to investigate what they believe to be
Yeah.
his victims.
Yeah.
So let's do this way. So his last victim was we'll do it backwards because I think it's easier this way. So his last victim was a barista in Anchorage, which is where he was living.
Right.
Her name was Samantha Koenig, and she was working at a little coffee hut. And they actually have video of him kidnapping her from the coffee hut.
Mhm.
And, her poor family is just devastated and they're looking for her everywhere and they're
Yeah.
on the news and they're doing flyers for her and everything. And then they get a text from her phone and it's a ransom demand.
Yeah.
And what he asks for is $30,000. Well, the reason he's asking for that is because he has her debit card.
Yeah.
And so he's telling them, put this ransom in her account so that I can get it or I'm going to kill her. So Dad doesn't have $30,000 to give him. He puts $5,000 in there. And then Keys starts withdrawing the money.
Yeah.
At various places. He's mostly in Texas.
Mhm.
And but they never seem to get to him in time.
Yeah.
And he sends them, as proof of life, a video or a picture of Samantha holding a newspaper, and it says February 13th, and she was taken like 2 weeks prior to that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what they don't know is that was her dead body.
Right. He put makeup on her.
And
He
sewed
made
her
her up.
eyelid with fishing line.
To make her look alive.
Yes. So what really happened to Samantha is he took her directly to his house and chained her up in his shed.
Yeah.
Girlfriend and daughter in the house,
Mhm.
apparently clueless. He rapes her and murders her, and the next morning leaves for a cruise in the Caribbean.
Yep.
Is gone for 2 weeks on vacation with his family with this body in his shed as though nothing is happening. I mean, you talk about psychopath.
Yep.
to be able to just go act like everything's fine and normal.
Mhm.
When he gets back, he makes her up with makeup, sews her eyelids open with fishing line, does the ransom demand. Apparently commits some necrophilia with her, because that was one of his things also. And then cuts her body up and goes freaking ice fishing. This kills
Yep.
me, because we know all about ice fishing. Our dad was an ice fisherman. Goes out on a local lake, augers open, holes to fish in,
Yep.
drops portions of her body weighted down through the ice fishing hole,
Mhm.
then fishes. And as he's telling the story to a police officer, the police officer says, "Did you catch any fish?" And he said, "Yeah." He said,
Yeah.
"What did you do with the fish?" And he said, "Well, I took them home and ate them." After he dropped this obviously decomposing body into the lake.
Yeah.
I mean, this is,
Like, that wasn't the officers were just, like, horrified,
oh yeah, the
and he
officer said
acted
he
like,
was just sick over
"Of course
that.
he did." Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, duh. I
Mhm.
was fishing. Of course I ate the fish."
Mhm.
So that's what actually happened to Samantha Koenig, but of course her family didn't know that at the time. So he finally screws up. And he had been, they had not suspected him for one freaking second over
No.
Samantha Koenig or anything else. No one had ever looked at
No.
keys for anything.
They had no
So,
idea.
no. So at one of the ATMs where he was using her debit card, he was in a white Ford Focus that turned out to be a rental car. And they didn't get the license plate, but they started like pulling over white Ford Focuses in Texas. And an officer pulls him over and asks for his ID, and he gives him his real driver's license.
Mm.
And he sees he's from Alaska,
Mhm.
and he knows this is the guy. So they arrest him right there and take him into custody, and he gets extradited to Alaska.
Well, and some of her belongings are in the car,
Yes, the
the
phone.
phone, the debit card, her
Yeah,
driver's license. He's got a bunch of her stuff. So
yeah,
it's a done deal.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there, the interrogation of him, and then the questioning of him that goes on forever. There's like 40 hours of interrogation with him, and it's not all about the Samantha Koenig case. It's about all these other cases that we sort of know about.
Mhm.
But he they started asking him, about Samantha Koenig, and starting to wonder what's going on with him and if he's going to tell them the truth or not. And he tells them, and he starts alluding to other crimes.
Yeah.
And he tells them, "I will tell you everything you want to know, including all the gory details, if you can guarantee me I will be executed. And I want a date. When will it be?"
Yeah. He wants
And
the
the
death
police are
penalty,
like,
and he wants it now. Yep.
"Yeah." And the police were like, "Well, I mean, that's not really up to us, like, they said, "Well, the more murders you tell us about, the more likely you are to get the death penalty." Like, but because they wouldn't guarantee that, he held back a lot of information.
Yeah.
But he did basically spill the Samantha Koenig story about everything that he had done. They went to the lake, they found her body, it was all true. But then he starts alluding to these other crimes.
Yeah.
And the police are like, come on, man, you got to give us something. Well, it becomes this absolutely ridiculous negotiation that
Mm.
goes on for a huge amount of time, trying to get tiny little bits of information out of him. If
Yeah.
you listen to some of the interrogation recordings or watch the videos, it is so freaking aggravating, because the majority of it is nothing but him just pulling BS and trying to
Yeah.
get more of this or that or whatever.
Yeah,
But
and kinda weird small talk and just
yeah,
yeah.
like kind of trying to buddy up to the police and to the
Uh-huh.
FBI agents and stuff in just creepy freaking ways. And they just buy into all of it.
Mhm.
At one point, he was demanding an Americano from Starbucks, a Snickers bar, and this one particular brand of cigar.
Yeah.
And so they'd get him whatever he wanted, because they
Mhm.
were just desperate to, like, who else did you kill? What else have you done? Because nobody ever suspected this fool of anything. And so
Not at all.
they're desperate to find out what else he's got. So he finally gives them a name. Well, names of a couple that he killed in Vermont.
Yeah.
And why can't I find that? Anyway, I'll tell you their names in just a minute. So
Oh,
he
it's
tells,
Bill and Lorraine Curry
yes, there you go.
in
So
2011.
in 2011, so he says that he broke into their house, he robbed them, he took them to an abandoned house of some sort.
Yeah, an abandoned farmhouse that he had
Yeah,
chosen and had
before.
already scoped out and was ready for.
Yeah, he was like staying in a hotel in this town in Vermont that he had one of these murder caches buried there. So he was just going to go find a place that was the easiest. He found a house where he decided he was going to kill a couple this time because he had absolutely no preference. It was literally just about murdering. He did not have a preference at all, which is a really weird thing for a serial killer.
Right.
Um,
He told investigators that they basically chose him. He didn't choose
mhm,
them, they just emerged, and that was the opportunity, and he had the
right.
feeling, and off he went.
Like Samantha Koenig's coffee hut was
Mhm,
open late and she was there alone. Boom, there
mhm,
was the opportunity.
yep,
So he goes to Bill and Lorraine's house. The reason he chose their house is because he could see that it was a couple that lived there and it was
mhm,
easy to get into their garage, to get into
mhm,
their house. That's how he chose them.
and there were no children and no pets.
Yes. Yes, because he had decided he wasn't hurting children. After he had a daughter, he decided he wasn't hurting any children.
Mhm,
Pretty sure he
and
did hurt at
animals.
least one.
Yep, and pets make it more likely for you to get caught, so he didn't want any dogs,
Right.
didn't want any kids. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. So he sneaks into their house. He kidnaps them, basically takes them to this old farmhouse that he's already prepared for them.
Mhm,
He ties up Bill and then he has Lorraine upstairs, and I think he was going to rape her. Well,
mhm,
Bill gets loose, and so he has to kill Bill. So he shoots him a bunch of times, and then he kills Lorraine,
mhm,
and he just leaves their bodies in this farmhouse.
mhm,
So this is in 2011,
mhm.
right? So it's been about a year since he
Yeah,
did that, when he's talking with the police and the FBI get involved because this is in another state. And so he tells them where the house is. Well, in the meantime, the house has
yeah,
been torn down and hauled off to a landfill, apparently
yeah,
with no one even knowing there were bodies inside. So this huge hunt, it took a hunt. They searched for 112 days. This huge group of people were searching this landfill for these bodies. They never found them.
yeah.
So I have a little clip for you that I want you to hear. This is him. He's talking with some FBI agents, and they're negotiating again, trying to get more information from him. And he's asking about if they've found Bill and Lorraine's bodies in the landfill. And I want you to listen. It's a little hard to hear and understand, so turn everything up. I want you to really pay attention when he starts to say, I almost feel guilty.
We went to Radiation, we got New York, and then that immediately generated this letter of intent. So, but in order to kind of keep, I think, Vermont on board, it certainly would be nice to kind of say, all right, based upon your letter, we also got X, the name of a victim, the location of the body. And, we already have their assurance about the Courier matter. You don't have to worry about what's happening with that, because that's all tied up in this, and we could do the same thing with the New York paper.
Right. Where are they at with did they find the bodies yet? Or?
I think it's like a football field with the stuff they're going through.
They're making progress, but it's just
It could still be like a couple weeks or something.
yeah, it definitely.
They're not going to stop.
This is
Tenacious.
one of the best analogies I've heard for it is it's more like an archaeological dig. Than it is just going through and kind of tossing things
Right.
until you find what you think you're looking for.
Yeah, that's a lot of trouble to go through. I almost feel guilty. Costing the taxpayers a lot of money to find them.
But
I just kept my mouth shut.
But that's how committed the FBI
No, I
is.
understand. They,
It just
well,
won't
it
be
sounds like they've got it. They've got the area. They just got to find it now.
Okay, so I almost feel guilty costing the taxpayers a lot of money. If only I just kept my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Not guilty that he murdered them and left their bodies there.
No.
This is the kind of sociopath this dude is.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like this was a good example. There are hours and hours and hours you can go listen to him if you can stand the terrible audio of all of the, interviews with him. But that really struck me. I almost feel guilty.
Yep.
Because I'm costing the taxpayers a lot of money. Maybe I should have just kept my mouth shut. I mean,
Yep.
Can you get sicker than that?
Yeah.
This dude. And what they were trying to do, so they'd made an agreement with Vermont, and this was all the stuff that he was trying. He decided he wanted to keep this all out of the press, that he didn't want everybody to know about it. And he was just making shit up, I think.
Yeah.
And so they'd gotten this letter from Vermont about an agreement that they were making about these murders. And he had alluded to killing someone in New York, and they were trying desperately to get a name from him about who that was, something.
Mhm.
Because all he said is he killed someone in New York. He didn't give a name, a gender, a location, nothing.
No.
He gave very little away. And he was just playing with the police, and he was just playing with everyone. And so they were just desperately trying to get him to admit, like, who else did you kill? Where are these bodies? Like, what
And he was
is
getting
the situation?
So much attention.
He
you
was.
All of these men that were kind of buying into his bullshit and kind of pretending to be his friend. And he was just eating up every second of it.
Yeah. To watch the interrogations, it's horrifying because they're friends with him. They're joking with him. He's laughing. And the FBI agents and the police talked about how horrifying and hard that was for them. But they knew that if they didn't play his game, he would not tell them. And that's what they were looking for, is they just wanted some answers. They just wanted some closure for families.
Yeah.
Well, in typical psychopath style, instead of giving this information up, instead of standing trial and taking accountability for the things that he had done, instead, Israel Keyes killed himself in prison.
Yep.
So this was on December 2nd, 2012. So he was arrested in 2012. Like, he wasn't in jail for very long.
No.
So he slit his wrists with a razor and strangled himself.
Yeah.
He was making damn sure he was getting the job done.
He was leaving.
Yeah. He couldn't get them to guarantee when they were going to execute him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was way too damn selfish to be bothered with spending a lot of time in prison. And so he just killed himself. He didn't care. He didn't believe anything. He didn't have any beliefs about, like an afterlife or what happens after you die or anything like that. He believed it was that he was an atheist, and it was all done when you were done.
Yep.
So he did leave a suicide note, if you can call it that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to read it for you because it's incredibly hard to read this. And someone very kindly, I will give them credit. It is the murder.com website, and they have the suicide note. So I'm going to read it to you.
Murder.com.
Sounds like my kind of website, to be perfectly honest.
What should we name the website? I just think a lot of murder. Murder.
Murder. Seems kind of familiar, frankly. Okay, so I'm going to read you this because, So the police were really hoping, like, oh, he left a suicide note. Maybe he, like, gave us some clues or, left a confession. Oh, no. He was way too important for that. Mm-hmm. Here's what it says. Where will you go, you clever little worm, if you bleed your host dry? Back in your ride, the night is still young. Streetlights push back and black in neat rows. Off to the right, a graveyard appears, lines of stones, bodies molder below. Turn away, quick, bob your head to the seat, as straight through the stop sign you roll. Loaded truck with lights off slams into your broadside, your flesh smashed as metal explodes. You may have been free, you loved living your life. Fate had its own scheme, crushed like a bug, you still die. Soon now you'll join those ranks of dead, or your ashes the wind will soon blow. Family and friends will shed a few tears. Pretend it's off to heaven you go, but the reality is you were just bones and meat. And with your brain died, also your soul. Send the dying to wait for their death in the comfort of retirement homes. Quietly, quickly say, it's for the best. It's best for you, so their fate you'll not know. Turn a blind eye back to the screen. Soak in your reality shows. Stand in front of your mirror and you preen in a plastic castle you call home. Land of the free, land of the lie, land of scheme, Americanize. Consume what you don't need, stars you idolize. Pursue what you admit is a dream, then it's American die. Get in your big car so you can go to work fast on roads made of dinosaur bones. Punch in on the clock and sit on your ass, playing stupid ass games on your phone. Paper on your wall says you got smarts. The test that you took told you so, but you would still crawl like the vermin you are once your precious power grid's blown. Land of the free, land of the lie, land of the scheme, Americanize. Now that I have you held tight, I will tell you a story. Speak soft in your ear so you know that it's true. You're my love at first sight, and though you're scared to be near me, my words penetrate your thoughts now in an intimate prelude. I looked in your eyes, they were so dark, warm, and trusting, as though you had not a worry or care. The more guileless the game, the better potential to fill up those souls with your fear. Your face framed in dark curls like a portrait. The sun shone through highlights of red. What color, I wonder, and how straight will it turn, plastered back with the sweat of your blood? Your wet lips were a promise of a secret, unspoken, nervous laugh as it burst like a pulse of blood from your throat. There will be no more laughter here. I feel your body tense up, my hand now on your shoulder. Your eyes, forget the lady called luck. She does not abide near me, for her powers don't extend to those who are dead. Something unintelligible. Would that I could keep you, let you be the master of your own fate, knowing full well what's at stake. My pretty captive butterfly, colorful wings my hand smears. I somehow repaint them with punishment and tears. Violent metamorphosis, emerge my dark moth princess. I would come often and worship on the altar of your flesh. You shudder with revulsion and shrink far from me. I'll have you tied down and begging to become my Stockholm sweetie. Okay, talk is over. Words are placid and weak. Back it with action or all comes off cheap. Watch close while I work now. Feel the electric shock of my touch. Open your trembling flower or your petals I'll crush. That's what he left from his suicide.
I mean, that's not haunting.
No, that's not creepy as hell, right?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty wild. That earlier, the stuff at the beginning, it sounds to me like some of the stuff that really anti-government stuff.
I was thinking that too.
Sounds
Interesting nod to the power grid going down from a kid who was raised with none. Yeah.
right. And it sounds a lot like the church he was raised in.
Yes.
Very white supremacist, anti-government stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So in his cell, they found, and they actually found these before he died, but this was something that this is sort of what he left the world with. These are 12, well, there are 12 pictures here, but 11 of them are skulls. and they're drawn in blood,
His
which they
blood.
believe it's his blood.
Yeah.
And then one is the goat or a pentagram, I guess a nod to his Satanism or whatever. But this has made the FBI think that he had 11 victims, that there was a skull for each victim. We don't know, because all he did was screw with the FBI and with the police and try to get whatever he could out of them and give them little tiny bits of information here and there. We honestly have no idea how many he killed. There are some cases that are maybe attributed to him, but we do not know, really.
Right.
He confessed to a murder in New York State. He did also rob 2 banks, one in New York and
yeah.
one in Texas.
That's right.
Forgot.
Yep.
He also said that he burglarized and burned down a home in Texas.
Yeah.
And, beyond that, we don't know. There are some cases attributed to him, maybe.
Well, it's hard because when he went on one of these little killing jaunts, he would travel really far. So he might rent a car in one state, fly to a certain state, rent a car there, and then drive 1,000 miles before he killed somebody. And then
That's
drive
what he did when he
1,000
went to
miles
Vermont.
more, before he got on another plane to fly home.
Yeah.
So he did a lot of crisscrossing the U.S., but he also was in other countries. He was in Belize, and as we know, he spent some time in Egypt when he was in the military. It's possible that he killed people in other countries. It's absolutely possible that he killed people on Indian reservations.
Yeah.
We don't
Well,
know.
and in Canada, because he
Yeah.
used to drive through Canada to Alaska.
Yeah.
And in some of the videos of the interrogations of him, an officer did ask him if he killed anyone in Canada, and he said, "Oh, Canada doesn't count."
Yeah.
So we don't know.
Yeah.
He did admit to a sexual assault of a teenage girl in Oregon in 1996.
Yeah. Who talked
There's
him into letting her. He said he was going to kill her, but she talked him into letting her go.
yeah,
And he was so angry with himself for being so weak and vowed that he would never be that weak again.
yeah, because it was such a risk
Yeah.
to him. So things didn't end with weirdness after he died. Katie, do you want to tell us a little bit about his funeral?
So when he was in Texas, when he got caught, he was actually there for his sister's wedding.
Yeah.
And his mother and 4 sisters were there, and their brothers-in-law, and their, uber orthodoxy Christian kind of, faith here. And
Mhm.
they tried really hard at the wedding. The pastor spoke for like 45 minutes, mostly to him, about, embracing Jesus and basically being saved. And it actually ended with him having a horrible outburst at the wedding.
Yeah.
And telling his family, basically, he told his sister and brother-in-law, he said, "You don't know what I have seen and what I have done and what I have been through. I have to drink every day to deal with that." And, so he had just had this big, awful thing with his family, but it's clear that they were completely unaccepting of him if he was not a part of their faith.
Yeah.
That also, looking back to his dad, when he left the family's faith when he was a teenager, his dad cut ties with him completely. And he
Yeah.
stayed connected to mom and some of the siblings, but his dad cut him off completely at that point. So, this is the only family he really has, where the ones basically that he saw there. So
Mhm.
after he dies, they decide to have a funeral, which honestly, like, what?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
And so they bring his body back to the lower 48, I believe now I can't remember. I think they did it in Washington.
I did.
But they have this small funeral, that actually only the mom and those 4 sisters and 3 brother-in-laws attend
Mhm.
to try to save him. Well, they can't save him, according to the
Mm-mm.
pastor. They can't save him, he's burning in hell.
Yeah.
The funeral was mostly about how he's burning in hell and eternal damnation, but we'll continue to pray for him anyway.
Yeah.
It was in no way about his victims. It was in
No.
no way about the chaos and the hurt that and, the death that he had caused. Nothing about that. It was basically about, just a big oratory on how he's now in hell because he didn't, accept Jesus and he committed these crimes. But mostly it wasn't about the crimes, it was about the fact that he didn't join their church. It is
Right.
really sick. The whole thing is
Right.
sick as hell.
Yeah, one of the pastors said Israel rejected the gospel, and thus the outcome of his life is this tragic story,
Yeah.
as though leaving his religion of his childhood actually caused him to be a serial killer and then kill himself, which was horrible. I mean, it kind of gives you some insight into why
These
he
people.
was
Yeah.
who he was.
Yep. Which isn't
Yeah,
an excuse for what he did in any way whatsoever, but it does offer some insight into the pressure that was on him, the
yeah,
treatment that he received because he rejected that religion.
yeah,
Very interesting. But yeah, his family, what the hell?
yeah.
It
Just unreal,
the fact that they moved his body all the way down to Washington and had a funeral and why?
right? Like,
Why? What
there was
why wasn't he
no,
just cremated and a funeral? That
yeah,
it scares me.
yeah. One last opportunity to jab him, I guess.
I think
And
so.
not that he didn't deserve that. I mean, it's just weird.
It is weird.
And in one of the interrogations, he told a police officer there are two of me. And the police officer said, "Oh yeah, how long's that been going on?" And he said 14 years.
Yeah.
And the officer said, I took that to mean that he's been a serial killer for 14 years.
Yeah.
So that would have been in 1998, which is when he
Yeah.
left the military.
Yep.
Is when there became two of him because no one in his life suspected this.
No. No, the
He could have gone
people.
on killing for a really long time had he not made that
Yeah,
one mistake.
totally. The people in a your cat startled me so bad.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, she's standing behind me if you're watching the video. If you're not, Katie
It's
just got
Israel
her
keys.
heart stopped.
Oh my god. Okay, let me just tamp down this panic in my heart. And when he was in Alaska, I mean, he was doing business with people. He worked for when he lived on the reservation, he worked for the reservation
Mhm,
doing construction and handyman stuff. He had his own business doing some construction stuff, and everyone
mhm.
liked him,
Yeah. The
had
police
great
said he
things to
was
say
the
about him.
kinda guy that they would you'd give your house key to him and let him work on your house when you weren't home.
Yeah.
I mean, when he's talking about there were two of him, he was not kidding.
Mhm.
People around him had no idea. And that's unusual because a lot of these others that we've covered, people are like, "Yeah, they were weird," you know?
Right.
There wasn't a lot of that with Israel.
No.
Well, do you know that forensically, the only thing they have ever found of him is a single fingerprint?
Yeah.
And they confronted him with it and said, "Hey, we just found a fingerprint of yours." And it was in in the bucket, I think.
Mhm.
I can't remember what it was for sure. But they said, "You know what? We found your fingerprint." And he's like, "No, you didn't." And they're like, "No, we really did. We really did." And he's like, "Wow, I mean, I'm kinda makes me feel like an idiot. Really screwed up." But literally, forensically, I mean, that's how aware and smart he was. I mean, above all of this, he was incredibly intelligent
Mhm.
to have made this happen for so long before
Yeah.
anybody figured it out.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, that's our take on Israel Keys.
Yep.
You can't get weirder than this. Maybe you can. Probably you will, but
Yeah, hold our DDP. It'll
yeah, yeah,
change.
it will. It will. Yeah, it's true. But this has been our presentation of Israel Keys, and you know it. We are here. This is our Tuesday show, so
Yep.
we will be back again on Wednesday with another great case for the week, and we'll be back Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain for our Case update live stream. We'll be back again on Thursday at 7 p.m. Mountain for our Psychic Hour live stream.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and our Wednesday case this week is Jelaine Maxwell.
yes.
We're going to examine
indeed.
her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, what's going on in her case, where she's at right now, what's happening, so that we can continue to track that case with you guys. So
Yeah.
that is what tomorrow's case will be all about.
And that it's super important. It's something we have to keep an eye on because, you know, she's got to be held accountable. She's got to be held to account. So
Mhm.
we will be back with that.
Yeah,
So we can get weirder. We're about to, trust me.
I'm afraid so. Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah. Well, we are True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. Thanks for being here.
Take care.